Princess Elizabeth Challenge Cup in its 75th year. And we have Norwich School on this side, and Durham furthest from us, and a clean but slightly shaky start it looks like on the Norwich School side. A little bit of steering, got a slightly weird sort of rigging pattern for a school crew perhaps, and it looks like they've taken a curvaceous start.
Yeah, certainly a weird rigging pattern. We'll probably have a look at that in a second as we see Fiona Dennis there with the flag trying to steer the Norwich crew back onto their station. They've done the opposite of what I like to see, where you see the crew stay really tight to the island. They allowed themselves to get pushed off the island, but it hasn't affected them in terms of the position on the race too much.
Yeah, so that's Toby Finch in the cox's seat there. Just looks like the boat is now going rather straighter, but it hasn't affected their position. They've already taken a really strong lead over Durham School, and Durham perhaps a little bit less used to the rigours of Henley and haven't done a lot of experience in that boat by comparison with Norwich. National School Regattas finalists in Championship fours and Championship doubles, 7th in the Championship pairs amongst them in this crew, so there's some really good experience and racing experience there. But it's unusual to see a crew so untroubled at this stage in the race, so I think they've got off to a bit of a flyer.
Yeah, they have got off to a flyer. We've moved along the course here. You see at that 3/4 mile, they've already passed that. Coming up towards the mile marker, that's down by Upper Thames and Remenham. And we can see that actually, as we're looking on the left of our picture, is Norwich School, who look like still hungry. And how about this rig? What do you think of the 6 and 7 men sitting together, both on the stroke side?
Well, like I say, that's quite unusual. I mean, I think in my day we would very seldom do a rig like that. It's something that's come in over time, and we see some of the top international crews, including the British 8 this year, having a rig so that you get bow and stroke on the same side of the boat. And there are some different views about whether that's good or not. As you see here, we go, there's a stroke, that's the guy sitting closest to us. The stroke saw goes in the puddle, that's the swirl from the bow oar, and that means that getting sort of dirty water, it's a bit harder to grip the water. We said, you know, pushing the boat along, sending it along, harder to do when your oar goes into effectively a swirling plug hole of puddle from the bowman.
It's a great description, isn't it? You're putting your oar into a swirling plug hole of water rather than being like some sort of pole vaulter who's putting the oar solidly into a slot and then moving the boat past it. That slot is not quite so solid if it's got that moving water in it. But it's the sort of thing sometimes coaches like to do. There's an argument it helps the boat go straighter. I think that works in a coxless 4, that you're balancing the forces out if you put 2 of the riggers together. In an 8, I'm not quite sure it works as a make the boat go straighter argument. It might just be to do with the rhythm and the setup of the way they want to row.
One of the things you often look at is what we call cover in a boat, which is the gap between that plug hole of water and the oar going in. That's the cover, the gap between the sort of strokes blade and the previous puddle. And so, yeah, if you've got the speed up and the rate right, then you should be clearing the other puddle, and so that gives you the advantage and potentially the stability that you're looking for. But here what you can see is when you have the 2 oarsmen sitting close together with the oars on the same side, it does help you potentially to row more in sync. Sometimes it exposes little differences in movement and timing, so a reason for choosing it might be that it just helps set the rhythm of the boat better, as you said, Greg. It may be that it's harder to steer in a different configuration, which is sometimes problematic for younger crews, but I think no problems here for young Toby Finch in the cox's seat.
No, that's right. I mean, another thing, I guess, with this rate, as long as you're pulling hard and maybe keeping the rate that little bit lower, so try and go further per stroke but take fewer strokes, then you're more likely to clear the puddles and not find that problem. The problem's only when you're rowing shorter strokes, it will allow you to land in the puddle, which maybe when they're up to full pace, the Norwich crew are going to want to make sure they're giving maximum force, maybe taking that a little bit longer and a little bit lower stroke rate to make sure they clear that puddle.
Yeah, one of the things, if you've been watching around the world, if you've been watching the Olympics, you'll have seen the fashion increasingly for very, very high stroke rates. So going over the course at over 40 strokes per minute. When you're rating that high, with the limitations of physics, you know, it's quite hard to clear the puddles of the crew. So one of the arguments is perhaps racing a bit lower and rowing a bit longer, you get a cleaner run on the boat. And I think that's one of the things we're seeing some of the record-breaking crews. The Romanians here at Henley did that famously.
Yeah, I agree with you. And a headwind perhaps allows you to rate that a little bit lower. Maybe that tailwind at the Olympics had the crews whizzing along as high as they could, as we see the crew here from Norwich School coming across the line to take this heat of the Princess Elizabeth Challenge Cup. A nice easy oar, looking balanced, bit of dressage across the line. They're able to wipe their faces, think about the race they've just completed, and think about the race they've got coming up tomorrow, as we now see Durham School coming towards the line. They're going to pass the line, hear that sound, and they will now relax. And 3 cheers as we see confirmation Norwich School beat Durham School.